Hello and welcome to the show. This week's FailRace versus the community, we were to go racing with some Mazda Mx5 Cup Cars. Our first race would go to the Brands Hatch Indy circuit, and the thing that we immediately noticed about these vehicles, they are quite oversteery. It's kind of very snappy oversteer, especially if you put a wheel on a curb, and the curbs around here are quite nasty. There was a lot of sliding Mazdas in the first few laps around here, as everybody was trying their best to get to grips with the handling. We see the leader here running through turn 3, runs too much on the curb, gets a big slide, he catches it before going round in a circle, but in all of that he's going to lose a couple of places, and again you see clips the curb a bit too hard on the inside. You see how much it throws the car sideways. It was quite a scary prospect as someone else is going very sideways down turn 1. Certainly that was the way most overtakes were happening in this race. We see a blue MX5 incredibly sideways up at turn 2. Your car would get sideways, of course you're going to be slowed down. The blue car here loses one place to the grey car. The yellow vehicle braves it around the outside, was just far enough ahead to get ahead as they turned into the corner. I kind of hoped for a little bit closer racing with these cars, in all honesty, as again we see very, very big sideways moment. I had, perhaps expected slightly better action from these cars. It was just a little bit unfortunate. We did have some other issues, perhaps bigger issues. There was an awful lot of lag going on. I was especially badly affected. Quite a lot of lag, though, just in general in the lobby. It was not a happy lobby. In between bouts of lag and spinning, there was some still close racing, as you could imagine, between the MX5 Cup Cars. I was fighting with the bronzy coloured vehicle as we come down towards turn 1. Now, you don't really want to be on the outside of turn 1 through here. I give him space as the cars ahead have all manner of issues on their own across the curbs and so on, and still I'm hugging the inside while he tries his best to find a way around the outside. Gets a big slideways moment, not caused by the curb that time, just pushed it a little too hard, trying to keep alongside me, and I can just to get ahead as we go into turn 3, although the bronze car would have his own issues. Trying to get the hang of the slightly snappy oversteer at times with these cars was causing a few issues for some vehicles. There were some clean overtakes in this race. Mostly everything was going down at turn 2. As you can imagine, really, it's by far the best overtaking spot on this Indy layout of Brands Hatch. Turn 1 is very, very fast. Not a huge amount in the way of braking zones. Turn 2 is your biggest sort of stopping zone. So that's where most of the action was going down. With the assistance of lag, I found myself in this continual battle with the blue MX5 as I chucked my car up the inside into turn 2. If you got it right, you could possibly hold your car the long way around, keep it alongside as we run down towards turn 3. That does put you on the inside, but what people were tending to find is if you are stuck on the inside there, you can often get caught and taking such a tight line that actually makes you quite slow off the corner. So I could manage to gain that position by going around the outside. This wasn't the greatest versus the community race we've had, sadly. A lot down to lag, and these cars not quite liking the curbs as much as I had kind of hoped. I thought they'd be pretty good around here. And turns out not quite so much. Turn 2 again. This time the yellow MX5 goes defensive on the inside. He manages to fend off the position there, but the green Mazda just got so much speed. Managed to get a great run out of the corner. That could put him up the inside, and this time he doesn't take too tighter a line, and he would get the position. At the front, the leader, well, all the cars around are lapped down vehicles that have been killed through lag incidents and so on, had taken a trip through the pits. It wasn't a massive margin of victory. You'll see a grey Mazda at the back of this group that was second place. He briefly challenged for the lead until a big sideways moment dropped him a little bit back. Yeah, it was just a slight shame this lobby was quite a broken one, because these cars are great vehicles. I was hoping for really close racing with the Cup Cars, just slightly let down by some connection issues. Up next, we went to Long Beach. Not a track I tend to run in versus the community. I love this circuit. It's a fantastic track, one of my best circuits to drive around as well. However, when it comes to these kind of races, it's very easy to have big accidents at Long Beach being such a narrow street circuit. I figured running these cars, you know, slow, relatively good relatively low powered, relatively good handling, I figured there'd be a safe bet around Long Beach, and not really, unfortunately, as a bunch of cars got stuck on the outside, and then cars got pushed to the outside in the tyre bundles, and these tyre bundles are horrible. They are really very, very mean to our vehicles. Only 4 cars made it through the opening melee without having to at least take avoiding action of something, and then those 4 cars came down to 3, as the 2 leaders got a little bit stuck together, and one of them got spat into the wall. So yeah, it hadn't been a particularly great start with the Mazda. The car we're following was thinking about having a look up the inside, but wasn't really quite close enough. Didn't take long for the fields to get really rather spread out in this one. This would be the battle for 3rd place, and you saw again the yellow car here got very, very sideways coming down this little straight, which is going to give the white Mazda all the opportunity he needs to get up the inside. Much more in the way of overtaking opportunities around Long Beach. It's certainly not the easiest of tracks to overtake around at all because it is so narrow, but there are perhaps better overtaking opportunities. More of these straights followed by big braking zones, and that was where 2nd place was hoping to make his move down this back straight. Gets to the inside, gets ahead briefly, but can't quite pull it up in time. Just runs that little bit too wide, and the other red Mazda would do a very effective cutback and get his lead back as they run into the hairpin. The 71 was trying to get himself up the inside, but yeah, the leader covered the inside. A little bit of a bump between the pair of them. He was defending his lead well. As I said, a slightly easier place to overtake certainly than Brands Hatch, but still, it's still quite narrow around this circuit. This little group would form briefly to have a battle. Honestly, there was quite a lot of cars very lonely in this particular race. As we run down towards turn 1 here, we get a very, very close-up look at the back of an MX5 Cup car. Turn 1, pretty good place to go for an overtake as the blue car runs in, but he too runs in a little bit too deep, and the yellow Mazda goes for the cutback, gets himself alongside. Blue car doesn't quite fancy forcing the point too much through the roundabout. Yellow Mazda slow off the roundabout though, runs in a little too deep through there, and is coming under a little bit of pressure. There's a black Mazda getting ready to be involved, and there's a very, very big slide again across the curves. And we had less sliding going on around here, but again, you hit one of the big curbs, you're going to have some issues. And yeah, that's what we were seeing a little bit of. This would become the battle over 2nd place. This red Mazda made a mistake. I think he probably got it very sideways across the curb, would drop back away from the lead. You can just about see him up there in the distance as a back marker finds his way to get stuck in the tyre bundles. We're going side by side as they get past a lap down damaged car. That's quite an impressive move. Still not quite sure how the white Mazda managed to get all of the speed to be in the right place to make that manoeuvre work. That's quite a tough manoeuvre to make stick through that corner, especially when there's a stricken car in the way, but he made it stick. The red car was really trying to fight back, but again was just running a little bit too wide and would lose out. So it was the red MX5 that would go on to take victory again. Another less than ideal race. This time, not particularly caused by curbs, not particularly caused by the cars, going sideways and spinning out. It was better around here. Could still happen, but it was better. Again, we had some connection issues. I think I ended up in somewhere like 6th or 7th. It was kind of a bit of a dodge the accident session in some respects. The slow-mo lag was making things horrendously hard to drive the cars. So yeah, in between lags, it was going okay, but was a little bit of a shame. Our final race would go to Road Atlanta as we come up towards turn 1. Slightly less chaos through here than we had at Long Beach, which is always good. A few cars escaped onto the grass, but nothing too major. I was a little bit slow through the first corner that put me in trouble. Car went around the outside of me and would get past as we go over the top of the hill. Now there is just a big train of Mazdas as we race down the other side. I can see them squabbling up ahead, which is always good. Always good to see the cars ahead squabbling, because they're going to be slowing each other down. They're going to be taking slightly compromised lines, and sure enough, I get a huge amount of speed coming into this really long corner, but the cars ahead of us was squabbling as well, and we're all trying to find a way past one another. Somebody was very, very slow coming onto this back straight, perhaps got a touch, went a little bit sideways, lost a lot of his momentum, and would have to drop to the back of this little group as we all fight our way through the chicanes. One of Mazda's overshoots a little bit. I get stuck on the outside, and there's not quite room for another car to fit through that particular space, so all of the white Mazdas started to come back past me again. They probably get involved in a crash on the final corner, and somehow I managed to not crash into anyone and get past them. Unfortunately, I did have to have a dab on the brakes and slow down, so now I had another car going up the inside who almost made up 3 places out of all of that, but he couldn't quite make it stick. I forced him onto a slightly tighter line, much as we saw on the opening lap. Taking that too tighter a line through that first corner would be a little bit problematic. This was a big battle that we're going for quite a large part of the race further back. Of all of the races, certainly Road Atlanta was the best and the most lag-free. Still had some lag problems, but the most lag-free. Yeah, this group were having a big old tussle for position. The blue Mazda we're following here was trying to go around the outside of that very long corner, but in equal cars, that's not a likely place to get any manoeuvres done. This is where your best bet is to get a past big braking zone into the chicane, and sure enough, he gets up the inside, but the green MX5 is fighting back, and now he's stuck on the outside for the fastest corner of them all. This final turn, he's still sort of got his nose alongside but can't quite do anything about it as they'll run through that last corner. The pink MX5 is up the inside of someone. Yeah, the final turn is a scary corner. Certainly trying to get overtakes done through that final turn is a little bit scary, but it can be done. Even in these vehicles. Again, we have another brave soul trying to go around the outside of the really long corner. Just couldn't quite make it stick around there. He does get a good run onto this back straight. Goes to the inside at the chicane, and they're going to go run side by side through here. Problem is, you get stuck on the inside for that first part. You can be forced wide. He only does the wise thing. He cuts back to the inside, lets the white Mazda run himself out of road on the outside, and is ahead before they come to this very fast final corner. But be careful of the curbs on the inside, though, again, as you saw that car there get tipped sideways. This group of vehicles, as I said, remained close for quite a large part of the race. The purple MX5 here was the quickest of the bunch, but as we often see when you run kind of one-make races and so on, it can be quite hard to make progress when you've got groups of vehicles ahead of you, trying to make progress when you're in exactly equal cars, because you have no specific strengths around the track that you can utilise. And then if you make a little mistake like you did here, just ran a little bit too deep, trying to carry too much speed into that corner, he's immediately back under attack. When there's sort of this many cars around, it doesn't take much for you to suddenly find yourself under attack, and sure enough, the blue MX5 gets himself to the inside, gets it stopped, and doesn't leave any space for the purple car to try and find a way past. And there's a white Mazda doing a little bit of rallycross on the exit of the corner there at the front, and things had closed up. There'd been a little bit of a gap for a while, but second place would catch up to the back of the leader as we run up towards this final corner. As I said, getting too wide around the final corner is unlikely, and it's pretty much flat out in these cars. However, when the vehicle ahead of you gets a bit of a slide mid-corner, it's always helpful to get that good run down towards turn 1, and sure enough, the white Mazda utilises it well, goes around the outside. The purple car's trying to fight back, but it's just like a little bit too far back. And again, like at the top of the hill here, we go on 2 wheels across there. It's just a tiny dab on the brakes, so you'd have to be incredibly close to try any sort of manoeuvre. And these lot were back at it again. Big group of cars, some bumping going on as they race down the hill. Everybody somehow just about got away with that one, which is quite lucky. Yeah, this purple car was in all sorts of trouble with sort of trying to find a way past vehicles ahead, being slowed down, and then everybody would get past him again. I would imagine him be quite infuriated, stuck in the middle of this group as we run down towards the chicane. We're all going in 2 by 2. They're trying to make it 3 wide almost up ahead, as the blue car goes for a big dive on the inside, but he runs wide. The white car runs even wider. They all bump and end up firing each other out wide, and the purple car gets all 3 of them in one go. Very helpful very helpful indeed when your opposition all kind of trip over one another and let you pass. Also, tyres just magically decided they should appear on the track. As I said, this car was pretty quick. It didn't take long to catch up to the back of another vehicle, but he was running out of laps. That's what I said about the scary too wide into the final turn. It can be done. They both get through there just about cleanly. The thing that made it scary was because of the bumps and the curves, and we saw what issues these cars had with hitting the curbs too hard. Their tendency to kind of go a little bit sideways. You saw how close that was to being a disaster between those two vehicles. They got away with it, but it is certainly a challenge getting vehicles safely too wide through that part of the track. At the front, and it was the white MX5 that would go on to take victory, again with some back markers to get out of the way. In the end, it was a relatively safe margin, having got past that purple MX5. Relatively large gap back to second place. A better race, certainly this one. I kind of feel like this versus community hasn't quite done these cars justice. They are quite good cars, and there certainly can be plenty of good racing. And in between the horrible lag spikes, we did have some good racing. It was just not a good evening for Forza servers, it turns out, and also Brands Hatch curbs were quite mean to these cars. But there was still some fun to be had, and I would certainly still recommend the MX5s. But it is a shame that Forza servers decided to ruin the fun ever so slightly. Anyway, that is it for this week's Versus the Community. The next one shall be held on Thursday, the 26th of November. We are going to be racing B-Class Classic DTM cars. If you want to sign up and take part, then you can go to our forums. There will be a link in the description. Find the FailRace versus the community section, and you can sign up in there, and all the information on the cars will also be found in there. But that is it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.